Director Dr. Ramashastri, my colleague Deputy Governor Shri H.R. Khan, distinguished bankers, distinguished guests, and friends from the press. First, I want to congratulate Mr. Ramashastri on an excellent year in which many of the actions that were contemplated by the board have been put into action, some of which we saw just now. So congratulations. I had a fascinating trip through a number of centers, the Open Source Center, the Cyber Security Center, the Center for Analytics, and certainly seems as if there's a lot afoot at IDRBT. The proof of the pudding is, I saw a set of staff papers which are sent to me and I read on the plane on mobile banking, which I thought was an excellent introduction to both the challenges in mobile banking as well as the facts on the ground. There was a very good survey on the use of mobile banking, and I recommend it to anyone in the audience who has an interest in mobile banking, including the very interesting facts that the number of smartphones that are out there is already quite large. The use of mobile internet, even in rural areas, is quite substantial. Of course, urban areas score over rural areas. But perhaps most interesting that even though they use the mobile internet, the share of time that they spend on mobile banking is still relatively small, and that needs to increase substantially. The IT revolution is on us in India. It's a revolution which is changing society fundamentally. There was a paper a few years ago, in 2004-05, I think, where someone was talking about the tasks that could not be done by computer, and that was still the realm of people. And it was a small set of tasks, but amongst the tasks that they thought would not be done in the foreseeable future was to drive a car. And we know that as of now, that can be done by computer and has been taken over by the robots. So this is an issue that really is something that will face us in the next 15, 20 years, both in terms of opportunities as well as in terms of challenges. How do we adapt to the fact that increasingly a lot more can be done, which is good because it can reduce costs, it can change ways of working, it can make our lives much better. At the same time, it also displaces jobs. So if the computer does the job, what is the ordinary citizen going to do, and how do they make money? That may sort of speak to the very core of society. How do we actually earn money and spread the money around? And that's something that I think will be very interesting to watch. But even in India, in the last couple of years, we've seen tremendous changes. You've seen the spread, for example, of these platforms, internet marketplaces, which are taking a bigger share from the traditional marketplaces, but also adding tremendously to the choice that is available in semi-rural, semi-urban areas, and even in rural areas. Today, it is quite possible to order from one of these platforms in a small town and essentially have access to all the shops in India and perhaps some shops outside also at the same time. And even while you're ordering, there is a possibility, and we at the Reserve Bank are examining this, but there is the possibility that you get credit from these platforms. And of course, the platforms are bringing about a revolution in logistics in the country. And that will create a lot of demand for rail, for air, for road logistics. And I think we will have a significant change in the way of doing business. Does this mean that our local Kirana shop is out of business? No, that could be part of the logistic chain now. Instead of selling or in the local village shop, instead of selling shoddy clothing, it may be able to be part of the logistic change for these big networks and be able to supply some of the material sourced from elsewhere in the country. But it could also supply timely products, dairy products, and so on, which don't have a high shelf life, and keep that on tap. So I think the way of doing business for much of our society is also going to come under challenge. We've seen it in banking. We've seen it with the adoption of IT in banks, which is going quite well. We have the core banking system adopted through pretty much the entire banking system. But we also have increasingly banks going to the internet, mobile technology, diversity of products, diversity of services being offered to customers. So all this brings opportunity and challenge. Let me speak to two important challenges for the banking system. One is, how do we use all this information that is now inundating us? And the second is, what do we do about security? Now, let me start with information. Tremendous amounts of information about the customer that is now being made available through the system, ranging from their social media habits if they're on the internet, but also various kinds of interviews, various kinds of product use, the way they use their bank accounts, when do they come, deposit money, when do they take out money, how reliable and regular are they. Lots and lots of data, all of which can be used to formulate a better sense of what the customer is likely to do, what the customer is likely to want, and essentially serve those customer needs. Are we doing enough there? Are we trying to figure out in a better way, of course, respecting customer privacy, but are we figuring out how we can serve the customer better? Some banks are doing this, but we need to do this in a better way. All too often, some of the banks are sticking to traditional customers, offering them traditional products in the traditional way. And going forward, clearly that business is going to come under increasing competition, under increasing threat. One example of this is, we had a number of setbacks in large project loans. And so increasingly the flavor of the moment is, let's all make housing loans. Of course, when you make housing loans, you better be careful you're not picking up the the higher risk housing applicants and venturing into an area which is already well served, at least through traditional means. How do you make sure that as you move more into this area, you're mitigating risk and making the right kinds of loans? Perhaps the use of the data that is being acquired either by a bank, by the credit information bureaus, but also that's available on social media might be useful. How do we use this? Very important question for banks. And then with all the data available, it's also important in not just identifying customers and serving them better, but running the bank better. And here again, I would say we still have challenges. For example, we have the large loan database that we have put in place. It certainly is surprising to me that before this large loan database was put in place by the Reserve Bank, banks didn't quite know who all had lent to a particular borrower, because there was no centralized source of information on that, at least on a systematic basis. But even in operating the large loan database, we have found hiccups in getting the information from the banks on time, in the right format, with up-to-date details on the performance of the loan. And that is suggesting that IT and IT usage hasn't penetrated into the banks as fully and as properly as we would like. The entire bank is still not fully integrated in terms of IT usage, such that on a daily basis it can spin out what the details of these loans are, what their performance is. It still takes time to put this data together. If it takes time to put this data together for the RBI, it also means the bank itself doesn't know on a daily basis what is happening. And it is important that it know on a daily basis, as certain incidents in the banking sector have certainly revealed. If you don't know the picture on a daily basis, there are activities that can pile up over time, which can be extremely risky for the bank. So identifying these kinds of activities requires timely information, and have we got enough timely information within the bank to make these kinds of judgments? That is something that certainly we have to think. Second set of issues, as I said, was security. That very important that we all pay attention to cybersecurity. At meetings at Basel, amongst the central bankers, I will say that one of the biggest concerns across the central banking community is whether we understand enough about the possible cyber threats and whether the banking system, the financial system, is fully protected against what can happen. Because it's not just the banks, it's also our market infrastructure, it is our payment and settlement infrastructure, all of which we need to make sure are not infected. Because if, in fact, there are threats to these systems, they can create substantial losses if they go down. So we have to be constantly vigilant and do our level best to protect these systems, because there is a lot of innovation. And because banks are where the money is, there's a lot of temptation also. And many people are trying desperately to get in, and we have to keep them out. One of the biggest issues we have to face in cybersecurity, of course, all of you are trying very hard to keep abreast, and I'm glad that IDRBT is also doing its bit, both in disseminating information, but also trying to keep us in the country on the frontiers of the state of the art. But I also think that we have to constantly worry about the trade-off between convenience and security for both our internal users as well as customers. Often customers hate a second level of protection. You know, this two-factor authentication, for example, for credit cards, a lot of people complain about. But when their credit card gets stolen and somebody runs enormous bills on it, which then they have to run from pillar to post to get somebody to pay for, then they realize that perhaps two-factor authentication is not a bad thing, at least in terms of protecting themselves. But we have to worry about, when do we have more convenience? When do we have more protection? And sometimes, is security at the customer level the best form of protection, or is security at the bank level? For example, could banks do exception monitoring, exception handling, look for transactions that arouse interest and try and curb those? Well, if they are willing to have good systems to do that, perhaps we can allow the customer to have a little more freedom. So for small value transactions, if banks or credit card providers are willing to take the risk of having somebody make purchases which are unauthorized, then perhaps we can allow more small value payments which are based on direct usage of card without a second factor. But I think increasingly going forward, what we need is technology to provide us better answers on security, which help both convenience as well as security at the same time, create less of a trade-off between convenience and security. And looking at this, the number of possible systems that are coming into play, perhaps the solution is not too far off, that we can have both convenience and security at the same time. But again, this is something that IDRBT is looking at. I think that's wonderful. Mr. Khan mentioned a number of initiatives which have now recently been undertaken. I think one of the absolute important aspects of information technology for India is information technology has to be the answer to inclusion. That it is only by reducing the cost of transactions can we reach everybody in the system including those with low-value payments, low-value services that are needed. So information technology is going to be extremely important from that perspective. And what is important, what is interesting is in the last few months, we've had at least 5 different initiatives which will rely on an increasing use of information and technology. One is the Aadhaar system, of course, which is under a little bit of a cloud right now with the Supreme Court, but hopefully the Supreme Court will see value in permitting wider usage of Aadhaar. We have a lot of new bank accounts that have been opened under the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. Of course, we need many more of these accounts to be operated on a frequent basis, and information technology has to be the answer to make it much more operational. We have an increasing growth in electronic transactions. Yes, mobile transactions are picking up, but so are other forms of payments, and it's important that we facilitate the growth of transactions and use less cash over time, as Mr. Khan said. We have, again, as he said, a large-scale reach of mobile banking, and today it would be fair to say much of India is covered by mobile technology. And finally, we have a new form of institution, which is the payment bank, which is coming on stream very shortly. My hope is this combination of initiatives will come together to provide everybody in the country convenient financial services at their doorstep, services that are secure, where the customer can be identified, the customer comes into the formal system, and risk to the customer is mitigated, as well as risk to the system from the customer is mitigated. That all this can be done at relatively low cost, so that we are one of the first societies which can include even people making less than $1 a day into the formal financial system. And that as we bring these people who are less sophisticated, less experienced, we also have a strong grievance redressal system, which again is largely automated, not completely, but largely automated, which can be used at low cost and which can help grievance redressal. I think we are on the verge of all this, but not quite there. Take one example, cost structures. Cost structures in the banking system, despite all the use of information technology, you find still costs are still significantly high in the banking system. Why are they not coming down faster? It's reminiscent of Bob Solow, Nobel Prize winner from MIT, who talked about the information revolution, and he said you can see it everywhere except in the productivity numbers. I think you can see the effect of information revolution in the banking system everywhere except in the expense numbers, right? Why aren't the expenses coming down? And what we need to do as we go forward is, of course, look at whether technology is really bringing down costs. And my sense is as we use more and more technology, it has to bring down costs. That must be the case. But then there are 2 other factors we also need to think about, which may prevent costs from coming down. One is market structure. It could be the structure of markets, the structure of key players that are involved in technology, the structure of fees that you have to pay are such that the cost reduction doesn't get translated into a bottom line reduction because of some of these fees, interchange fees of one kind or the other. So that's something to think about, that what are the impediments in the system, and can we bring down those costs as the cost of servicing comes down. But a second factor is the human factor, that business, the way business is organized also has to change. We can't still run the branch as if we were in the days of the ledger system where somebody comes and we write in the ledger and so on. If we have computerized, the nature of the branch has to change. The same people can't occupy the same positions in the same branch as if we were in the 1970s and the 1980s rather than the 2015. And similarly, various kinds of actions by the consumer have also to be shaped in such a way that they can take full advantage of information technology. Could they be, we certainly want them, if they want to have access to a bank account printout, etc. But if they are more willing to rely on the net, rely on virtual printouts, is it possible to migrate more of them? How do we do it without coercive actions? That's something that needs to be thought out. Similarly, the various databases that are involved, KYC, data repositories, unique account number structures, etc., how can we reduce the costs of using them, make them easier to use, and engage them much more in the analysis that we need to do? All this requires basically re-engineering of business processes, trying to put them to take full advantage of IT, as well as convince the customer that a new mode of behavior may in fact take full advantage to their own benefit. So let me end by saying I think there's lots of opportunities and challenges in this area going forward. It's extremely heartening to note that an organization like IDRBT is with us as the banking system, as the financial system faces these challenges, and is looking to take on increasing roles as the roles emerge and the needs emerge, and is going to keep us trained, supported with the research that is needed going forward. I should also mention that the Reserve Bank itself, because of the importance of this area, because of the need to improve our supervision and regulation of IT-related factors, as well as cybersecurity, is in the process of setting up a information technology subsidiary, which will actually hire people directly from the sector who have expertise and build up expertise inside the Reserve Bank to undertake some of its tasks. And I have full faith that this subsidiary will work in consultation with IDRBT to improving our preparedness for what comes. The Banking Technology Awards reflect the innovation that's happening in the banking sector that all of you have done towards some of the challenges that we have talked about just now. I look forward to these awards, and I look forward to more work and more cooperation with all of you as we try and realize the full benefits of this technology for the people of the country. Thank you very much.